Hey everyone, this is Ben from T3 bringing you another game from the regional top 8 in Northern California. On the left we have Kris playing HB Engineering the Future, and on the right we have Noah playing Kate. And I have with me special guest commentator Jon Dalesandry today. Hey Jon.
Hi, Ben.
How's it going, man? How do you like this matchup?
I have seen a lot of this matchup over the years. These are two of the classic corset IDs that are really, really good. And
So consistent. You cannot beat them.
well, somebody's going to get beaten here if I had to wager. We'll see who it is, I guess.
And I usually expect a really, really long game. I don't know about you when I sit against HB, especially nowadays with all the two-pointer agendas and the incredibly taxing ice that HB likes to run.
It's true. They have a great game plan where they only need to score 3 agendas, but you have to go get 4 as the runner, and that sucks.
And they have so many good cards that they can play Caprice.
They can even fit Caprice, and they have this thing where they get a credit a turn just for playing Netrunner. It's really good. And look, he's early going to push out a remote and defend. Oh, and he's playing Next Ice. That's not something that you expect to see out of HP these days. With the amount of Parasite that runs rampant in these Anarch builds, Next Ice seems like a flimsy defense, but Kris is running it, and it looks like he's done well with it. So I'm excited to see actually what is in his deck here.
I actually really like the Next Ice right now. The Parasite I feel is a little bit less common, and in a lot of builds, this cheap hard ETR ice is really, really helpful. I mean, it builds up later game if they don't have Parasite. Parasite really sucks, but I don't think Kris is relying on the Next Ice. I think this is kind of a rush strategy that he's built into his deck.
That very well could be. Next Ice maybe mixed in with some of that other classic taxing HB Ice to get kind of a well-rounded suite of defenses. And it looks like it served him well on the day he's here playing at the final tables. This is the round 2 of the winners bracket, I believe.
This is round 2 of the winners bracket. Yep. But I think, even right now, I believe that's going to be an Adonis campaign behind the next silver. He had $3. Kris had $3 when his turn began, so not enough to res it. But the hard ETR is going to serve him really well in getting the money back out of that card.
Yeah, and unless there's a Parasite in that Kate deck, that ice is going to be super annoying for him, because as more of it shows up, it's going to take more and more Lady counters. And you presume that Kate is probably running Lady as her barrier breaker, and next silver is really good against that if you can get some Next Ice rest.
Definitely. And the Proco and Daily Cast, it was a
we
beta
were
test.
Wrong. Look at this. He could have just rushed it, but he went greedy. He wanted to get the Jackson out, and this is a great play because look at what we talked about. We said, hey, that's probably a campaign that he can't afford to res. He was down to 3 credits. Mm-hmm. If you're Kate sitting across from that, that's exactly what I think happens too, right? And putting out Jackson and drawing up, I think you really do need to go. Anytime there's an unknown face-down card and a Jackson on the table, you got to go kill the Jackson in HB because of this exact play that happened. Mm-hmm. Kris may have gone ahead and fired the beta test anyway, if not for Jackson, because he hit 2 ice. But with the Jackson, it's 100% fire in time.
Oh, definitely.
And that is just a huge, huge tempo surge at the beginning of the game for Kris here.
Yeah, and he gets the Heimdall and the Turing, 12 credits for $3 plus the install dollar. There's so much good happening there.
That's just an amazing opening.
Yeah, exactly what you want to see on Kris's side of the table. That's going to make it really hard, and a new install.
Yeah, he can just basically stick cards in here all day long and get credit for doing it. And if Noah doesn't even have any way to even get in there yet. But luckily he does have professional contacts out, so as he tries to draw for answers, he will get some money. And he looks like he does have a Lady in his hand, which will at least get him through the next silver. But he needs a good answer for Turing that isn't just spending 3 clicks, because he can't afford to do that over and over again. And
Definitely.
Still stay in this game.
Cyber Cipher coming out.
That is the best answer you can have. It's even better than David because it's
infinite uses.
Just gonna basically turn into just a small tax instead of a problem. But the problem is that there's 2 things in that remote. It could be Caprice, could be Ash, could be not even an agenda. It could just be breaker bay and money, which is ideal for Kris right here. So this is the problem that HB presents you with is they can build a stronger moat and they can just make it hard for you to check it, but really important that you do, and it's really tough as a runner to fight through that.
And I think you mentioned this right when Kris did it, but scoring that ABT is such a big tempo swing here too. Just being able to get the extra ice, even just the Heimdall or the Turing, I think puts Kris in a much, much better spot. But being able to secure both of them here is just, and another beta, and firing
the Jackson
again.
is still there. He probably won't have much ice left in his deck to get, but looks like he got at least an Architect.
I think that's an Adonis.
Geez,
and
4 points and 3 free ice. Oh, that is just, ouch.
That's gonna hurt a lot, and I know that Noah has the Mimic Answer in his hand, and Kris is, again, just like with the Max build, Kris is maximizing his value out of the cards he gets, placing, even though HQ is not protected, placing the Architect over R&D just to help pay for the extra money, right? Because Kris gains money for playing.
He's just gonna let him come into HQ as long as he wants, because right now he's gonna shove things in that remote, and that was the nice thing Noah did, was at least he set up an answer to that remote. He didn't really have the tempo to go in to probably trash what he thought was what looked like it'd be a campaign in a breaker bay. It could have been an agenda and a defensive card, which is what it turned out to be, which is way worse actually for Noah, because now it's 4-0. But he at least set up an answer to that remote to make Kris have to kind of think about what he wants to put in there, because he Noah's at least saying to him, I can get in if I want to. And unfortunately, he didn't have a chance to go get that beta test, though. And he still had left Jackson on the board, giving him another free fire. And those 2 beta tests, that is a ton of value for 4 points. That is insane.
Yeah, definitely. And when you're on, if you're on Kris's side here, or I guess either way, once you see a Cyber Cipher go up, do you start thinking about making a new scoring server, since there's only one of your Turings in that remote?
I mean, it depends on how he wants to. Ooh, look at this, getting back the money, and this is the best thing. Is he can put anything down in that server, and Noah's got to go run it and start spending his lady counters, and he does need another server if he wants to try to score. All he has to do now to win the game is score food, install advanced food that Noah can't get, and that's game. But his other out is, assuming he has some biotics, and since he's playing like it looks like a little rushier deck with the next ice and stuff, he might have a couple biotics. He could just biotic out the last couple agendas also and not need an actual scoring remote. And that's the power that HB gives you, is that they're really good at scoring out of a remote, but a lot of them have a biotic or 2 or even 3, and they can also close the game out without needing a remote, and that's really powerful.
And if Kris really wants to try and get the food out, he can just put a food face down in a server, and if Noah doesn't check it, biotic that one out next turn too. So, if you want to go for the little riskier play. Anyway.
Yeah, if you have a bunch of money and 2 biotics, that is a great way to win the game.
So a lot of action here happening. We have a lot of board state positioning and a lot of economy actually on both sides getting set up and trashed here. Kate went in and got rid of the Breaker Bay Adonis after Kris reinstalled that Adonis. So
which
trying
he
to
had,
deny
he had
some
to
money.
do that, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. If Kris gets rolling with money here, that biotic play, as you mentioned, any of the biotic plays are back online, and with Adonis is funding that, it's going to be an issue if that rolls out.
Right, and Kris is just doing what HP does here. It's just install take 2 and bait him through the remote over and over again, because Noah feels like he probably has to check every card that goes there. Because in this state of the game, if I'm Kris, I'm fine sticking a Naked Vitruvius in there and just daring him to come and get it for 2 points.
Especially
if he doesn't, I'm in such a strong position.
And especially right now when Noah did not have money. The daily cast makes it have 2, but that's not that much. I guess Turing only costs 2 money to get through at this point with the Cyber Cipher and Lady, but even still, I think that's worthwhile. As you said, 2 points isn't a big deal for Kris here.
Yeah, you don't want to give up an agenda if you don't have to, but making him run through that remote keeps him off. Now he's up to he can start to play that sure gamble and finally get or hedge fund No, sure gamble. Man, I get those mixed up all the time.
It's the same.
It's
the same
the
card.
same card. And next turn he can really money up. But like I said, that would have been a great time to just stick a naked Vitruvius out there, because it's just such a hassle for Noah to go into that server over and over again.
Yeah,
and that's the power of HBO, and he's gonna defend it even more, since Noah can get in there, and now he's gonna make him have to consider what that ice could be. Another next ice would be fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely, yeah. Give that silver some more subs. If it's another silver, that would be ideal, but I guess even a bronze wouldn't be awful.
Bronze would be pretty bad with Cyber Cypher on the remote. But if you could get another next silver out, that's really gonna tax the lady counters. And once you get 3 of them out, then now we have to go get at 1 as Kate, because that's the only way we can deal with it long term. If we can't parasite it, we can't lady through. That. Oh, there's one of them. That's good. Getting that rezzed. Now those lady counters are gonna be vanishing quickly.
Yeah,
if he wants to run anywhere.
And if that is another silver in the scoring remote, it's going to be very, very difficult to run that server. And we see the biotic.
There's one of the biotics. So, Kris might be ending this game pretty quick here. Oh, but look, he drops Clot, and he has the clone chip out, which is a great answer to seeing biotic, because now, he shows Kris that he can't just push points out of hand. He's got to at least make the plays in the remote.
Mm-hmm.
And so hopefully Noah can find an answer for all this nasty ice that's on the board. Heimdall, gross. Architect, keeping him from running R&D. That R&D is just not looking good at all.
Well, Noah,
he did run HQ because that was kind of the weak point. He wanted to poke, but that next silver is the perfect thing to have there, because taxes more lady counters, gets more subs on the silvers, and now all his servers are secure. Except for archives, but they're not a lot of reason to run there just to get a data sucker token.
And not out of Shaper, yeah.
Yeah. So Kris in a commandingly strong position here.
And Noah has a lot of cards in his hand that it helps, but he's it's because of the accelerated beta test, it makes it really hard to pull off. I mean, Noah has an indexing in his hand, which would be awesome if he could get into R&D, but with the Heimdall taxing the lady counters, it's going to be really hard for him to make repeated runs and be able to pressure the remotes, because if he tries to go for the indexing, it's going to rip open a scoring window for Kris.
Indexing is just so bad here against HB, where the ice is just too painful to run through twice. Heimdall is just too hard, and this Itchy, he got the third, he got a sentry on the remote now to force all the breakers, and it looks like Noah doesn't have a way really to deal with that, and so.
Well, I think the problem right there. The sharpshooter was in his hand and not.
That's the worst place as a shaper for anything to be, strangely enough, is in your hand, right? Much better to have it in your deck or in archives. So that's another just big tempo swing. Now, the lady didn't have many counters left, but the Sai losing that kind of sucks. And he makes an immediate install into that remote now that he feels that it's probably secure. And
it's an install advance, and we know Kris has the biotic, so this could be it.
Yeah, he's really saying this is the game here. That looks like it could be a food, but it could also just be a Vitruvius or something, and he wants to get a counter on it. It'll allow him to
get the biotic back,
or like a CVS if he's worried about Claude or something. Yeah, any number of things that could be useful. Now, how's he gonna get? He's gonna click through the Turing. Yeah, this is great. This is the thing that a lot of people don't think about, is that Turing can be clicked through, right? So he's got to decide, is that an Ash in the remote? He has a bunch of money, so he's gonna let Itchy fire, and then he can click through the Turing and use his clone chip to get the lady, and that's why you want some hard ETR, which he has, but hard ETR in the form of maybe a code gate also to force more breakers.
Yeah.
And here's the Ash. Now, Noah does have enough money that he can get this, but this is just such an expensive.
It's an expensive run.
But he had to do it. If he didn't, that's the game.
Of course. And that Ash, I don't think is going to live either. Or at least that'd be a huge misplay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Kris Kris decided it wasn't worth spending all his money pumping up the asterisk, since he knew Noah could afford to steal it no matter what he did. And so he's going to wisely keep his money to be able to still do things that he needs to do. And to keep the threat of Biotic alive, because now the clone chip for Claude is gone. So he can just Biotic out another 3-2 and be on match point.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, then everything in that remote is a big threat. That could be game every turn.
No, but Noah made a great play to get that food. A lot of people don't think that there's some really nasty ice there, but it doesn't even do anything. When you don't have any programs. So Itchy turned off pretty much, and Turing can be just clicked through, which you obviously, like I said earlier, don't want to do a lot. But to get the game-winning agenda, it's definitely something you need to do. So great play by Noah there to keep the game going, and to get on the board.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to me because it's like the ice that Kris put out kind of almost nullified, the other part of the server. Like the Ichi did some work, but in the Ichi firing, it allowed you to walk through the Ichi, and then the Turing wasn't a big deal, and then you can, because he's a shaper, just get back the old lady. And here Kris threatening
setting up the exact same play, but he can do the exact same thing where he can just come on back in. Now this time, I don't think he has the money. He doesn't have the money to fight the ashtrays, right? But what he can do is he can clone chip the Cyber Cipher, and he can get through by clicking through the Itchy. Unfortunately, he probably doesn't have enough money to match the ashtrays, but he has a bunch of money on that Tech Writer. So,
well, we might see the clone chip can either get back the sharpshooter or the Cyber Cipher.
The sharpshooter if he needs it. So, and here it is. He gets a bunch of money with the Tech Writer. He's going to make another Shaper play, which is just, I can do all kinds of crazy stuff when you don't know that I can. And he's going to take another shot at this because it, very well could be the game again.
Yeah, but I think here you're going to see the Vitruvius or a 3-for-2 like you were guessing the first food is what I would expect here.
Yeah, he probably only has 2 foods in the deck, so seeing them both already is necessarily to be expected. But he's gonna, he sharpshooters, and then for the Itchy, and then he must have another Cyber Cipher. Yeah, so he has 2 Cyber Ciphers, which is I think what you need to have in Kate to be able to threaten multiple remotes. And he's got his way into the remote back online and enough money to hopefully fight through an Ashtrace here.
Oh, I think the Ashtrace
no, it looks like he's a little
tough.
short. He can make it so that he can't score. He's got, did I say 8? I can't see really. The screen's small, sorry. Yep, it is an Ash, and that's a Trace 4. And he definitely could put it out of reach, but then he wouldn't have enough money to, Biotic and score it if it is in fact a food. So he's got to think about what he wants to do here. I think you want to pay enough to keep him out, because he can go in next turn by clicking through Itchy, and because he's going to trash the Ash here. He can get in next turn by clicking through Itchy, but Kris could very well have an Archive Memories or something to get that Ash back, and any number of things to keep this agenda alive for another turn. So
yeah, there's some options here, and especially if Kris has another piece of ice that he could dip over top, another next silver here.
No, that's too expensive at this point. He's down to 5 credits. Yeah, he needs
next
money.
Silver would work. He'd be able to install the next silver, gain a credit in advance, right? Be able to res the next silver.
Well, it costs him 2 credits to put it out and 3 to res it, so that's all his money.
Oh, okay.
And he needs money to score that agenda. Really, he has to, like an Archive Memory, okay, or get a bunch more money. But now I think this agenda is going to get given. He's just going to give up on this agenda, it looks like, and because he knows that Noah can click through the Itchy to get it this turn.
Mm-hmm.
So he must not have had Archive Memories, or that's the thing about paying that Ashtrace, and made him too poor to Biotic it for the score if it is indeed a food. So well done by Noah to just constantly keep finding ways to get into that server. Oh, he did. Oh, he had a click to put a card in that server. Okay, fantastic. I missed that. So that is a great play. Even if it's just a CVS or a Breaker Bay, he has to, dare Noah to. Is this a Caprice that I can fight you with? Is this, or a bluff?
Or it could be another Ash. You have to respect a lot of things at this point. Mm-hmm. So it's forcing Noah to take more precautions to try and go for it. It's exactly what you wanted to see here, but Kris has gone through 2 of his ashes already.
That's true. And like you said, this deck does have the ability to play Caprice, but if he's playing Architects and stuff, it might only have the influence to play 1 Caprice, depending on if he's got the foods in there. And if he's playing Eli's as well, then he might only have 1 Caprice. So he may or may not have seen it by now. But if it is Caprice, that server is gross with Caprice in the root.
I'm actually gonna go on a limb here. I don't think Kris is playing Eli's. He's playing the next ice, and I feel like with his rush strategy, it's a little bit more consistent for him to go for next and just try and rush out an ABT or something like that.
Sure, and he's packing a Heimdall as well. You're right that he might have gone heavier on Caprice and less on the. Ooh, he got it.
Yeah.
That was a bluff of a. It was CVS as a bluff, which is a great bluff by his part. Actually, what it made him do, if you notice, was it actually forced him to take a brain damage and a tag on the Itchy, because he needed to save enough money, I think, to try to fight an Ash Trace or something. So he let the tag and the brain damage fire, and it's not super important for that brain damage, but that tag has definitely sucked away a lot of his money because he can't afford to have professional contacts trashed. So Kris had to give up 2 points, but Noah's poor again, and he has a chance to keep dragging it through this remote if he has anything to put in it. But
see, that's the thing. That's what I'm actually unsure about. Is do you try and bluff out the CVS? Kris is going to go for it, or Noah is going to go for it either way. I feel like if Kris holds on to the CVS and waits for Noah to run through the server and then install again, it puts a little bit more pressure. And I mean, like, if you install 2 cards in there, I think that's really scary.
Well, he wants to install a card anyway to get his credit. Putting a face down, upgrading that remote is just the best thing to do that turn, because it changes all the math that Noah wants to do in his head. He has to, if he doesn't put anything in that server, it's a no-brainer for Noah to go in there, click through Itchy, and get it. But once he puts something in there, Noah has to stop and think, okay, if it's Ash, how do I deal with that? If it's Caprice, he has to do a bunch more things, and it's more likely that he makes a mistake and doesn't get into to steal the game-winning agenda if he makes a misplay because he's playing around something that's not there. So I think for sure that is a great move by Kris. And he's doing now what you talked about earlier, was maybe setting up a secondary remote, since he's committed his Cyber Cipher on the first remote. I don't know. Kris should realize that he has a clone chip and a Cyber Cipher in the bin, so code gates are still able to be walked through.
Exactly.
And Lady out will get through barriers. So unless he put another next silver out, or like that server, next bronze, next silver would be great, because it would pull a Sai and it would eat a bunch of Lady counters. That would be phenomenal. Or it's more likely that it's another Turing, because he probably has 3 Turing, and he doesn't want to put it. He can't, there's no sense of putting it on the other remote, and the centrals are pretty heavily iced already, and there's no, Noah hasn't even had any time to put any pressure on those really. He's got indexing in his hand that he can't use and stuff. So spending his ice on the remote is the best place for it here. But
and there's the Turing.
Yeah, but the Cyber Cipher from before from the Itchy trash is still available via clone chip, so it's not going to stop him, unfortunately.
I wonder if this is actually the asset remote, and this is where Kris is going to make money, and it forces the 2 Cyber Ciphers. Oh, guess not.
Oh,
hitting the
he
ABT.
He could have. So that's the thing, is Noah could have gotten that. He could have used his last clone chip for that Cyber Cipher, but
going out that beta test here was so good.
Yeah, now Biotic for a 2-point is the game. And because both the foods are gone, I think he probably only has 2, and so he's got to keep the clot threat on point now the whole game, and that's maybe why he didn't want a clone chip for the Cyber Cipher to get in that remote. He probably thought it was just an economy asset, but it being another 3-2 was just a really good play by Kris, putting it out in the other remote, because now all he needs is a 3-2 and a CVS and a Biotic, and he can win the game.
But that could have gone so poorly for Kris too. That would have put Noah at game point.
It would have put Noah in the game point instead, and so that was just a really clutch play to just go for it there. And he only had 3 credits left, so he couldn't have afforded to res both ice, keep him out, assuming that the other ice is maybe another silver, because that would be the best thing to have there.
I wonder if that's what made the play so good, is that, again, just like before, Kris was able to bluff out the Adonis campaign, and like, oh, well, he doesn't have $4, so why am I going to run and check this Adonis campaign?
Yeah, that's the thing about HB with all the campaigns and the 3-2 agendas is that makes it, I think, so powerful. Is the ability to never advance, the ability to fast advance, the ability to defend your agendas with upgrades. There's a reason it is a really strong deck.
For sure, and why we see it everywhere, and we have for many years. So I'm sure more to come.
But I like this take on it with the Next Ice, though, because if Next Ice sticks around, it can be really good. And we saw a lot of Anarchs here at Northern California, but against Shaper, Shaper used to play a Parasite, but with the Most Wanted list, it's less likely that they have one because they have to spend their influence on their clone chips and their ladies and stuff, and Parasite got a bump too, so it's an easy cut to make as a Shaper when you want to fit other good stuff in. And without a Parasite, the Next Ice can get really gross for Lady to deal with.
Yeah, and I think out of Shapers where Parasite was scariest almost, because with Anarchs, the clone chip to import it, that clone chip tax is even more expensive, but it was so easy for Shapers before to play a single Parasite, and back when clone chip wasn't influenced.
But play it 7 times the course of the game. Yeah, that's true.
Exactly. So it's, again, like I feel like some of these other pieces of ice, the Next and the Grail, I think a lot of these are very viable game plan options. So I really, really do like Kris's take on this food coats with the Next Ice.
And it looks like Kris put another card in his super server, and just Noah has to go try to deal with this. Any face down card can be game. Right now he doesn't have the money to buy something out, so Noah doesn't have to be worried about that. But this is just a great time to do what he did before and just try to sneak out another agenda, because it's making Noah spend all his resources. He's overriding mimics to get ladies out. Surprisingly, he wants to keep that hyperdriver for a big turn.
Well, I think he just hyperdrivered the original lady away, so he could clone chip this one back. So
Yeah.
it was a few different purposes that it served, but
Right, but he's not.
and there's the Adonis.
Yeah.
Finally.
That's gross. So, how good is food right now that Noah's stolen 2 of them, but he only has 4 points?
Yeah.
It's so good, such a good card,
Yeah.
and it's what makes this deck really good. Is that, like we said, he's gonna have to see 4 agendas to win the game, and he's halfway there. But it is like slogging through all this painful ice. It is just painful to try to get to those agendas, and all his he hasn't the beta tests. I don't think he's run R&D the whole game.
I don't think he has either. I think this game is out of HQ in the remotes.
He only ran HQ once, and he got stopped by I think he might have broken the Next Ice. But, I mean, he literally, all of his runs have been on those remotes the whole game. That's the power of HB. He's just able to drag him through those remotes over and over and over again. Because the times that he doesn't go check, it's that naked beta test that he fires, and now he's on game point. So, I think Kris is just playing it really well, of making him constantly have to make these tough choices. He's unable to set up any other threats to the central servers. But Noah has done a great job of finding ways to answer Kris's plays and to make it in to the remote and to beat the Ash if he has to get the money to do this or do that. And that's why he's still in it.
Noah's been making a lot of really great plays on the remotes, but I feel like he's almost like struggling. Well, he is struggling with the centrals, and that's where you would prefer to run against HB. You don't want to let HB get the upper hand and force them to just like run you through the mud to try and get all this nothing. In Noah's case, but
he's discarding some of these. All his power cards, legwork, indexing, R&D interface, all those power cards have been in his hand here for a while, and he's just going to have to give up on those because the centrals are basically turned off. Legwork is maybe doable.
Yeah.
But he's really, I think if I'm him, he's really concerned about saving these lady counters to deal with the remote, because he's constantly being dared to get in there, and he's been doing his best every time to answer that play. And it's got him both his agendas, and it has kept Kris from winning so far. But the time that he didn't go in over there, it was another agenda. So, and the first 2 times too, when early game when he didn't make it in, it was agendas. So, when anyone can be the game-winning agenda, he's got to spend his resources getting in, and this is the point where Kris can just put these campaigns down, put down an upgrade. And Noah feels like he has to go check it. Yeah. And he's just going to constantly spend his resources doing that.
Yeah, and the legwork, as much as I want it to be good here, is not going to help. Because, again, if Kris still has a Biotic in his hand, so as long as Kris has this credit pool, which he has established, it's really unlikely that Kris is holding an agenda, especially when Kate doesn't have any clone chip in hand.
You're exactly right. Yeah,
why not Biotic it out?
Yeah, right now he knows there's probably not anything in hand. And he knows, too, that I think he'd probably just put a Breaker Bay grid down in that remote. And so he has some time to try to build up a board position here. But I don't know that he's going to be able to find a great answer for R&D because he discarded his Mimic. He overrode his Mimic to keep his Hyperdriver alive. And Heimdall is just a giant tax for Lady.
Yeah, but I think if Noah had held on to his indexing, I really think that it hurts and it's going to feel terrible. But with the information that we know about Kris's hand and Kris's deck, it's going to be he doesn't hide agendas in his hand, right? He just once he gets them, he throws them out.
Now, see, if he'd kept his Mimic, he's able to indexing, and he could click the Heimdall. Mm-hmm. And then if he sees any agendas, he can set them up at the bottom, and then he can always go back in and get them later. Without having to spend a Lady counter, although we don't know what the bottom ice is in the remote. My guess is it is a Next Bronze or a Code Gate of some sort, because that would be ideal. And that would make an indexing play much, much harder, because if his Code Gate breakers really are just the 2 Cyber Ciphers, oof.
Ooh, there's one Next Bronze.
There is a Next Bronze, and now those silvers just got really problematic for Noah.
Now he can't even get through the HQ and the scoring remote.
Yeah, and with Kris being on Next Dice, I don't know that I like a legwork there if he doesn't have the SMC to, because the odds are that that's going to be an ice that he can't deal with, because stacking barriers is not. Kris wants to spread his Code Gates around against Cyber Cipher, and so you have to assume that's what he's going to do. And so I don't like running that there to give the potential of Next Silver to get more subs, because that's really bad for Noah.
Well, and especially bouncing on the run. I mean, like, that legwork he wasted 2 credits, and he really just put himself in a bad position as far as the board
especially
state.
when we talked about earlier that it's not likely that he has agendas in hand right now. So that to me does feel like a misplay. I think he wanted to get some use out of his legwork before he levied, but not really the right play here at all.
Tried to force it a little bit too much.
I think that's the first real misplay that we've seen him make this game. That was actually a big misplay.
Yeah. Certainly not out of it, although this money hole is going to be a little bit of an issue. It seems like most of Noah's economy has been off this Proco. And a little bit of events. We saw the technical writers, but not...
Yeah, some daily casts, I think, too, which are now back in the deck, but they're a little slower. And Tech Writer's not going to do too much right now, and he's already been through his deck once, and there's not... well, he'll be able to reinstall clone chips and stuff. If he does see a Tech Writer here, I think that is one in his hand. He might still be able to get some value out of it, but there's not a lot of time left. He's not going to go for it, because... There's not a lot of time left, really, for Tech Writer to pay off.
But I think I know you can't see Noah's hand, but he pitched the Mimic and he has the Stim Hack. I guess, you can get the Mimic back with the clone chip, and he has an indexing. So I think...
That has to be his line of play at the end here, is he needs to see a lot of cards.
Yeah.
Because he basically knows that, Biotic for a 3-2 is the game.
Yeah.
And so he can't have that in hand. And so there's stuff in... R&D, and he's got to get in there, and he's got to get in there for multiple cards, because he's only on 4, and he's not going to be able to get in a bunch. So indexing, while it is not really, great on this nasty remote, is his best bet, because he can stim hack to get the
Well, no,
lady. The lady's not so good against the Nexus anymore, but lady can break Heimdall. So he needs a way to answer whatever that bottom ice is, and he probably wants to find SMC here.
Yeah.
And then he can hopefully apply some pressure on R&D to close the game out. And he has Stim Hack for Atman now, which is great.
Well, he has Stim Hack, 2 clone chips, and an Atman and a Mimic in the discard pile.
It is definitely indexing time.
So I think you let the Architect fire on the first run.
No, because he has nasty remotes, and any agenda will just pop right into that remote. He cannot let Mimic fire.
You're right. So you'd have to get the Mimic with 1, presumably.
Yeah, and then he could put an Ash in R&D on top of that with the other sub. So no, Mimic has to be broken.
Yeah,
and
Kris putting that upgrade there, protecting.
That's exactly what he knows. That's where the game is right now.
Mm-hmm.
He's just waiting to draw into an agenda he can biotic, and I think, like you said, Noah's play here is some kind of indexing on R&D. But now that upgrade's there, he's got to deal with that, unfortunately. And Kris has enough money that if it's Ash, that keeps him out, and if it's Caprice, that just so much for indexing.
Yep. And Noah does have some really good answers. I think there's 2 sure gambles, SMC. Yeah. So Noah's starting to get in a place where he might be able to make a play on that on R&D, but he really needs to make it happen soon.
So he overwrites that Eve that's been sitting there for a long time. And it looked to me like it was just a Jackson. But this is a great time to do that because now I don't know that I res it here. I think I see if Noah will bite on running it. But because here's the thing. That looks to me, if I'm Noah, when he does that overwrite, that maybe he just top decked the agenda. But because I just put out the SMC, now I can threaten Clot. And so he's going to try to score it out of the remote that feels safe. And that at least makes Noah have to spend a turn deciding if he wants to try it as an R&D attack or if he's going to go back into the remote. And Noah's shown that he typically has been trying to get into the remote anytime it could be a game-winning agenda. And so I think if that's Jackson, I just do that overwrite and leave it unresed because if Ash is on R&D, it's pretty safe right now. And he can just make him spend a bunch of resources getting into the remote again, keeping R&D safe for the next few turns, and hope to top deck it. Digging with Jackson, I mean, maybe Noah has to consider if that got him the game-winning agenda in hand now versus still being an R&D. And so is it worth doing this indexing play, or is it worth trying to run the hand? I think his play here now is still R&D. Even
with the upgrade?
Yeah, StimHack gives him a lot of money. He had a bunch of money from gambling and stuff, so the money he's not too far behind on. And with StimHack, he has enough that I think if it's Ash, Kris can't afford to spend a gazillion dollars keeping him out. So it's probably just going to be a 3-credit tax to trash it. And so I think he has enough. He has another gamble in hand too, so he probably has enough to make a play on this remote. Well, let's see what he decides to do.
Yeah, I'm really curious. There's so many different avenues here. I would just be really worried about the Ash if I was Noah.
Well, no, because here's his play is to stim hack in the first time to kill the upgrade.
Oh, you're saying the first time, okay.
To get all the breakers he needs, and then he can index.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. Get the breakers, trash Ash, get through the stuff.
The downside is stim hack might murder the indexing, but that's the risk you take when you stim hack. That's the joy of life as a runner, right? Hoping that stim hack doesn't hit your most important card.
Well, see, but now Noah has money comparable to Kris, at least for,
Here it is. This is the stim hack for the Mimic, and then he's got stim hack money to get an Atman out at whatever it needs to get out as. And the nice thing here is he's still got a clot threat, so that he's going to just break it with Lady. And see, it is not a code gate, it is a Vikram, which is a weird ice to put at the back of a server, but sometimes you put whatever you can at the start of the game out there. And Vikram's not going to do a ton at the back, but it is annoying that brain damage is problematic, so he will have to deal with it somehow, which I think he might have just clicked through it.
Oh, and it's a Chrysium grid.
It's a Chrysium grid.
Oh, crazy. Okay. So, really good thing he stim hacked here.
Oh.
Taking
No,
the
he's
brain
taking
damage.
the brain damage instead of clicking through. I'm not sure about
But
that.
he's going to lose this last card to stim hack. So I don't know why. I think he was. I don't know. I don't know why. Did he have enough money to?
Well,
Yeah.
maybe he doesn't have a good answer. He could get admin. Admin 5 is see, he doesn't have a data sucker anymore though. Admin 5 is not really great against anything. If he still had data sucker, he could do admin at 3 or 4 and then try to get tokens.
Yeah, but it's. See, I don't. That play really confuses me. Letting the Vikram fire, not. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Noah's feeling in a bad spot, and he made a couple, like I said, the legwork, and then this stim hack play seems, not, maybe the best way he could be spending his clicks.
But it's also put Noah in a really awkward position because
Yeah.
his money is based on letting him have cards in hand. Noah has 4 brain damage now, so if Noah tries to money up or look for cards, he's just going to have to wipe it all down and end up with nothing again.
Yeah, I don't know why he didn't try to find some better way to deal with that, that Vikram.
I think he wanted to hold the clone chip to get the SMC, to get the clot, but...
Yeah, I think he's worried about keeping the clot thrower line, but that's the game right there. And,
time was called, yep.
Yeah. I feel like he has agendas just sitting in the archives to keep them where they're nice and safe right now. And it was Caprice in the remote. So, yeah, I mean, Kris pretty much had control of that game. There's not a lot Noah could do to steal 2 more. Anyway.
Yeah, those 2 beta tests firing right off the bat, I think that's really what did it. That first one especially, forcing the scoring remote up and allowing Kris to just put anything behind there from the get-go.
Yeah.
He really was able to use to his advantage.
Great early game by Kris with the beta test. I think this shows exactly why if there's a face-down card and a Jackson, you have to kill the Jackson because look what that was the game for him. Is once those beta tests got all that ice up, it was just tough sledding the rest of the day. So kill the Jackson. It's always been the case. It's still the case now.
Yep. Free beta test is good.
Great game by both players, though. I saw only a few misplays, but just a good classic matchup that was well done.
Yeah, and thank you, Jon, very much for joining me on this one. That was a great match, and I hope to have you on again soon.
Thanks, Ben. It was fun.
Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you next time.